Trustee Percy.
Here.
Trustee Covington. Here. Trustee Harrod. Here. Trustee Hill.
Here.
Trustee Montez. Vice President Sierra.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
A moment of silence for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the minutes, approval of August 28th regular board minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Question? Roll call?
I'm sorry, who's second?
Reagan.
Reagan.
Thank you. Trustee Percy. Okay. Trustee Covington.
Aye.
Trustee Harrod.
Aye.
Trustee Hill.
Aye.
Vice President Sierra.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Staff reports. Executive Director.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to thank everybody who was a part of our ribbon cutting for our Plano Playground and our Founders Day celebration on Saturday. Thanks to all of you trustees who came out to be a part of that day. It was a great day for the Park District, and it was a great way to celebrate 130 years of service to our community. Along that line, I also want to note that as part of that 130 years of service, we always strive to try to improve. And so right now we do have a community survey out and available for people to complete to help us to continue to evolve to meet the needs of our changing community. So we certainly ask participants and patrons across the community, whether you live in the Park District or not, if you utilize our services or if you don't, fill out that survey so that we can help to focus our efforts in the coming years. That can be found at our website or on our Facebook page, and it's a pretty quick survey, so we appreciate everybody's effort to help us by sharing your opinion. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Executive Director?
President Johnson, I don't have, well, first of all, congratulate. Is it on? My green button is on. Okay, perfect. I don't have a question. Congratulations on the first Founders Day. I don't want to get too far in the agenda, though, without I should have said something before the meeting, but just taking a moment to commemorate the 9/11 tragedy that occurred and those who have been distantly or immediately impacted, which is all of us in this space. So I just wanted to take a moment to commemorate that significant, life-changing event.
If I can say, too, I thought that the event was just outstanding. Again, your remarks that you made were just right on point. And to you, so to you and your staff, I don't think we tell you enough. Oh, job well done.
Thank you very much.
President Johnson, if I may, I just want to echo those sentiments. I had an opportunity to speak earlier today about preservation and how it overlaps with placemaking. And I was beyond thrilled to hear you speak of the tree that is in the middle of the park. And I just am so honored that we have this asset and resource now kind of in our toolbox. And Seven actually made me take her 3 times that day. So we definitely got good use out of every inch of it.
Thank you for saying that. And I do want to express gratitude to Becky. Looks a little different tonight. Mike Freeberg is here in her stead because she had a conflict, but to the entire planning team to be able to facilitate that fully inclusive playground and help to support that tree in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Park District, right? The modern and the history all together. That's what we do. And it is just a beautiful space. So thanks for honoring that. I was standing before the press conference, talking to folks, and all of a sudden, like, whoosh, this like flash of light came and something tackled me at my knees. And I was like, what? It was 7 because she was so excited about the playground. So I'm so glad she was so excited. And I was so glad that it was 7 because I was like, I don't know who's tackling me.
Yes.
So it's always good when it's a friendly tackle.
Absolutely,
So anytime she
absolutely.
wants to, she's all for it. But it was really funny.
Thank you.
And if I could, just the same sentiments about the inclusive playground and Founder's Day. When I think the door has been opened. The disability community is really so pleased with that park. And the principal from Jameson School was there and her students were there and she was ecstatic. And we had a conversation that maybe we can develop some mutual ways to work together to make experiences for the kids that she has. So
We would love that.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I have to open my mouth because I can't go without recognizing that playground. I was a part of the conversation that we had with that principal. But also just, as chairman of DEIA, I have not been able to shake that moment since that playground. I told Emily, I told Joyce, but it really is Peoria area's life version of Chutes and Ladders, if you ever played that game. But just the transformation and the emotion that was seen in that space, oftentimes those are untold stories. So I definitely want to take time to recognize the committee members and community members that were a part of those conversations. Katie Van Cleve. I'm going to forget a few names.
Ms. Marshall, Penny Marshall.
Miss Marshall as well, Pam Marshall, folks from EPIC, folks from Advocates for Access.
And to that point, just quickly, when you said Advocates for Access, not only did they push us, but they also put their money where their mouth was, and they made a donation to the project, which absolutely I want to honor in this space to thank them for, it's one thing to be that loud voice that says, do this, do this, do this, but with your stuff, but to put dollars behind it and to support our project was really meaningful to us. I know that they also donated to the Chillicothe Park District, who worked on an inclusive playground and celebrated it the week before we did. So they are absolutely taking both paths to try to support that inclusion. And I love it. And I love having them as a partner.
Yeah. And I appreciate that elaboration. I think that was lastly, a beautiful way to capstone how many accessibility initiatives that we've done this year alone. From the marketing campaign that we had executed and publicized, beautifully written, beautiful participation, from the playground, from the partnership at Bicycle Safety Town that offered the pop-up coffee shop. These are very intentional acts. So congratulations.
Absolutely.
And thank you.
And it's a good moment, if you don't mind, just quickly to note that the next opportunity for that kind of public input around the shape of a playground is going to come with the Franciscan Recreation Center. We are on a fairly short timeline in order to be able to access some grant dollars to allow us to make a bigger playground in the space. So our target is by the end of this week to have a survey that will go out to, we're going to target obviously West Peoria residents, but it will reach a broader audience, asking them to vote on their preferences for what that playground looks like. So please be on the lookout for that. I'll make sure to get that to all of you so that you can help us to present that and get that into your constituencies.
will there be a public meeting also after the survey results are gathered, or like we
We
did?
will have a meeting here. So our target is to try to get that on the October 2nd board meeting, which is the next board meeting. So we'll make sure to let all those constituencies know so that they can be a part of that conversation when you look at those recommendations.
Okay.
Okay, well, any other board members want to make any comments on the playground? Well, it was ecstatic. I certainly have to say that the people there, they come forward and they thanked us for that experience, and it really was. It was just ecstatic. You had to be there to see those kids' faces that are challenged like that. It just does something on the inside. And I certainly do appreciate every one of the board park district staff that were there and helped out, because you guys had a long day that day with the anniversary of the 130 years. And here it is. I remember just did 100. And here it is 5 years.
No kidding.
125.
We just had that party not that
5
long
years later,
ago.
it wasn't that long ago.
That's
But thank
right.
you all on
Thank
behalf
you.
of the board trustees, we really appreciate your work and your efforts. Okay. Anything else, Executive Director?
No, thank you, President Johnson.
Okay, Mr. Freeberg. Planning and design and construction.
The monthly project report is before you. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
I do have questions. Mike, can you speak about the enhancements that we're doing at Morton Square Park? Admittedly, there have been a few residents that have reached out to me, particularly about the removal of the bench that was in the park before. And then I know recently we had like a mini bulldozer, I'm assuming, creating, the path or the foundation for the swing set installation. Can you just talk about what we're doing in that space?
Sure. So we just completed I shouldn't say completed, but we just had a major grant from the city to put in the shelter and the new playground. We had some additional funds left over after that. So that has resulted in us putting in it's not a tire swing, but the new version of a tire swing. It's actually the same piece that's up in Glen Oak. And that is what that round foundation is that you may have seen in the past few days. The surfacing, we have to pull the swing until the surfacing is in place. That should be coming in early October. And then we're pretty excited about that. We're also talking with the city regarding the sidewalks that haven't been replaced, the brick sidewalks. Just had a meeting today about that. The bench that was there are several benches around the park. One of them was vandalized. It's kind of shocking as those are cast iron benches. And so we're not exactly sure what happened, but that was a blow. We're waiting on the quote for the spare parts. That just happened over last weekend. So once those are in place, we can get that bench back into service.
Thank you for that. And a follow-up, I'm happy you brought up the sidewalk. So someone else had made mention, it's a different individual, inquired about the brick sidewalks and if we're doing any efforts to preserve that, or are we looking to completely replace that sidewalk? What are the plans?
So that's kind of the heart of the question, and that's one of the reasons we met with the city today. Brick sidewalks are great from a aesthetic standpoint. They look historic, but they're an absolute nightmare for accessibility. The smallest tree root heaves them. Of course, if you've ever driven down one of Peoria's brick streets, you know, even in a car, what that feels like. So we have a lot of mature trees around the park that we don't want to hurt. And if we put concrete back, we'll be cutting some roots. So right now, we are in discussions with the city. We're having both their tree folks and our tree folks look at these trees and say, okay, is this tree near its end of life? Or can we do something to do something that won't affect the roots too much? Can we raise up these sidewalks? So there's a lot involved in the accessibility portion, because the main reason we want to do it is for accessibility, to improve that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask Reagan to chime in because she's more about placemaking and planning. So I'm going to try to talk very broadly. Is there an opportunity when we look at redeveloping those sidewalks to maybe like lay a foundation of cement and then put those bricks on top of that cement? That way we could at least adhere to the social cultural component.
Yes, and in fact, the bike trail downtown and the crosswalks on Water Street are constructed like that. That's an absurdly expensive proposition. That's certainly not in our budget. If that's something we want to do, obviously we'd have to take this in smaller pieces than we had talked about. The other issue is that if you adjust any of the curb ramps in the public right-of-way, you have to deal with the curb ramps across the street. So that suddenly quadrupled your cost in one fell swoop. So Again, these are discussions with the city. I think we're both wanting to find the right way to proceed. And yeah, there'll be a lot of discussions about what to do. We have 2 sides left that are brick. 2 sides have been concreted before now. So we do intend to reach out to some of the neighborhood advocates as well and see, because we know those herringbone sidewalks do have a historical significance. They bring a certain look and a feel to the park that I think is beneficial to the neighborhood at large. So again, it's a question of money.
Absolutely. Well, I'll just end by saying that if we can be, especially me, because I mean, if you know me, you know I don't ask about design often, so these questions are coming from somewhere. Well, if there's some opportunity for me to help facilitate that community connection, that way we can adhere to the best of our ability what the neighborhood wants, I'm happy to facilitate that. But I also understand, probably to what Reagan's going to get ready to say, is that preservation is not cheap, right? So thank you for considering all of that.
And I just want to piggyback real quick. I do appreciate you bringing that up. And I do recognize the accessibility factor, which is kind of this constant balance. But I'm happy to hear that there's going to be discussions with the city. There's a lot of new product, even stamped concrete, that is kind of the happy medium between the two. But when you get that information back, I'm assuming the Historic Commission might be involved with that design planning, hopefully, from the city perspective.
It's we're in kind of an odd area where we're not within the city's historic district, but we're in with the National Historic District.
Right.
So
But
that's
I was
one
just saying the
thing.
city has access and resources too,
Yes,
historically
and
sensitive.
that's one
materials and
thing.
design.
We just met this morning on it, so we
yeah.
still got a lot of things to work out from both sides. Has their homework.
Well,
So.
I'm excited to hear back. Thank you.
Just one question about are the brick sidewalks, the width of the sidewalks, are they wider? Because I know in the past, there's been conversation about if you remove the bricks, the sidewalks tend to be made narrower versus continuing that. 6 feet is in my brain. I don't know if that's right.
So the city requires a 5-foot sidewalk. Currently, they're more like 7 or 8. It's hard to tell in some areas.
Yeah, but I've heard that as being important to neighborhood folks to retain the width, because just in terms of walkability, if you've got people on both sides of the sidewalk.
Okay. Any other questions of them? There were a couple things I had also. We talked about this door, the window again. Is there any concrete with that board being replaced? Is there hadn't been anything on that yet, or?
Yeah, I believe that is scheduled for mid-October replacement. That window size is a custom order, so that actually has to be, I guess you'd call it cast, and then shipped. Well, it's going to be cast and then tempered and then shipped. So it's not a cheap or easy thing, just because it's so large. So that and there's also been delays with the aluminum framing that goes around it, called storefront framing. So we've been keeping close eye on it. Obviously, we all want it to be replaced as soon as possible. But those are the reasons for the delay. It's just a custom piece that's very large. And I know that's one the contractor doesn't want to make a mistake on.
Well, I can understand that. I was just kind of wanting to, kind of get an idea of time frame as to, when they will be done. Also, John Gwynn, we're still having some issues there with the electrical panel in that facility. It's been ongoing. I don't know what needs to be done to continue to figure out why we're still having those issues there.
We were made aware that the electrical issues persisted 2 weeks ago. We thought we had it remedied until I learned this evening maybe we don't. So I'll send staff back out tomorrow and we'll see if we can get that fixed. We thought we had it. We thought we had that issue
Well, yeah,
fixed.
I
So
get
my
it.
apologies.
No. I just, It's just that it gets dark when I was there, it would just continue. It kind of, the event, it didn't gel as well as it would have. That was the reason why. Because I did. We thought it worked before. It really did. I was there. But now it's back, So I was just kind of getting an idea of what that situation could be remedied. Okay. All righty. Anyone else have any questions of planning? And you did talk about the work with Grandview Drive shelter. I was kind of interested in where we are there. Are they still, IDOT still wanted to?
Yeah, that's a very long-term project.
Yeah.
So what's currently happening is we're preparing the designs. We have the house moving company preparing the engineering drawings for, how big of beams will it take to lift this thing up, how many of them. They're working with the engineers who are building or designing the foundation, how that's all going to plug in together. Once those designs are done, we will submit them to the State Historic Preservation Office, and that'll occur probably in spring. At that point, they will review, and to make a long story short, we're on schedule.
Okay.
This is still 3 or 4 years out before the actual move will occur. IDOT has to go through a lot of different steps. They have to acquire the property. They have to design their walls, all sorts of stuff. So we're just one small cog in that whole highway thing. So we're in pretty good shape at this point.
What impact would that have on that park? Would we be out of commission for a while, or would it not be used?
Well, getting through the Narrows will be ugly. I'm not sure exactly how they have the traffic plan set up. I don't think they have even created it yet, but it will be major construction because they'll be building new walls all along the bluff side, and we'll be certainly coming back to the board. There'll be some land acquisition that IDOT will have to do to widen that road. So there'll be little slivers they'll be asking us for either easements or permanent acquisition.
Oh, okay.
But again, that's probably a year away. So
Thank you. Trustee Birchie. There was another question that was asked of me, the track cheers in Donovan. Have you is there any other conversation on that in plan, or that you'd like to share or anything?
Our plan is to make a request to a local foundation for the money. We have the budget prepared that will be part of that request, and I think we have a strategy in place to do that. I've spoken to Executive Director Cahill about this, and we anticipate that occurring in the next.
We've actually submitted one request already, submitted last week or the week before. And we have a second request that will hopefully go out by the end of the month.
So
When you say request, you're saying,
A
grant request.
donation to
oh,
help,
donation for the,
yeah, grant
oh,
/ donation to help cover the acquisition and the first year of operations.
well, the question was asked of me at the event Saturday. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought more about it, but
Yeah, well, I appreciate you raising the question, Mr. President, but it's moving along.
is it? Okay, great. You'll keep us posted as to the process. Okay, great.
Tim or Emily or both, whomever, would y'all mind sharing the list of folks that you are soliciting donations from? Maybe we can add to that list.
I'd be glad to talk to you offline about that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think Chief Green is in the house tonight. How's he doing? Good.
Good evening. Before you is the activity report for August. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or provide any commentary.
I'd like to address the mob action incident that you have on your list and what occurred. I understand it involved 20 or 30 people about in an age range of their 20s maybe. Could you tell
That
us
is
what
the one
occurred?
there on August 25th.
Yeah, my computer's having issues.
Okay.
I can't pick the date up, but it was at Logan, I think.
It was in Logan. There was an episode of some disorder the backstory to that was it was more of high competitiveness. There was a soccer game going on, and a couple players decided to get into it on the field, which then precipitated the spectators and fans to also get involved with the melee. It was documented and order was restored, but the ages were vast. But as I provided, it was between 20-year-olds to 30-year-olds because that's who's playing on those teams.
The reason I bring it up is just that it seems like almost every month we're seeing one of these types of incidents. And I don't know, I mean, to me, this is just where society is today, but thank you for your information.
Okay.
Tim, I'm happy you brought that up. So I also picked up on that. Very familiar with the group of folks who facilitate these soccer games.
Yep.
So while we want to be good partners to the private sector to ensure that we can extend the recreational offerings to their interests, what are our corrective action strategies to make sure that this behavior does not continue, especially when we have contractual agreements with private groups?
Exactly. And I will, working with Nick Conrad and me and the point of contact for that soccer league have been in very good discussion with expectations. And she's done a very good job this season because there have been past experiences within the last couple of years. But the young lady who is the point of contact has been very, very involved, very active in trying to carry the water when it comes to Park District expectations on behavior. And she has taken, and Nick, you correct me where I'm wrong, she has taken corrective action in an administrative fashion with the teams that were involved with this particular melee.
I appreciate that. I think I love to hear that. That's one of my concerns. We don't just write people off after an incident.
Mhm.
This group has a very long history of maintaining safe and very highly trafficked programs that brings a very unique population that we do not traditionally get in our spaces. So I appreciate that.
Very good.
And Chief, there hasn't never, I was kind of surprised when I saw that because that group has been there for a lot of years. And we've never had any problems in the past with this sort of incident with that population.
This one, you know, it happened.
Yeah.
But there have been dust ups and disorder and whatnot, and we have been able to curb it or persuade it to another way where we're taking care of all of the disorder that has happened in the past. But this one was one that got the attention of the officers and security. From time to time, it does happen, but this one definitely was one that was worthy of having the point of contact do some administrative actions upon those two teams.
Okay, well, I was just kind of wondering. I know this when even with professional sports, sometimes guys are, they push somebody in basketball incident, next thing, but it's nothing really major. Do you feel like it's something we should be concerned about, or is it just one of these?
I think it's a matter of we do management. They have to have an understanding on what we expect, and we are in a deep understanding that they are passionate about this sport.
I get it. Yeah.
And we factor that in. But on the same token, there has to be a standard of behavior.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, because I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding as to this group. Every occurrence, unless you can correct me if I'm wrong, has been nonviolent leading up to this moment. So the last time we've seen like alcohol consumption, those are the more nonviolent reports that we've seen previously.
A little bit of that. I will say that there have been spotty incidences where there have been of shoving going on. Some of our personnel have been involved, which was unacceptable. And that was last season. And that precipitated a very, very frank discussion for this year. And again, the point of contact was very, very involved and very open to whatever we needed to do to clean up that.
Got it. I'm going to ask Emily to chime in because I want to make sure we're not opening up a can of worms. Can you speak to our working relationship with this private group?
The working relationship is great, and I would tell you that one of the reasons that we did formalize that agreement after really having an informal relationship for several years, because we wanted to try to make it cost effective, was at their request, because they wanted to be able to access Park District security support and have some more consistent structure to the event. And that's one of the reasons that we do try to work with people to get those agreements in place, because it does protect both them and us in those kinds of formal settings. I mean, I think anytime you have sports, right, you always have that opportunity for that competitive interaction and that potential argument. And so they've been really good to work with. They're doing their very, very best to find that balance between an informal structure and what it takes to keep an event like that safe and consistent for their participants. So they have been very receptive to that. I think too that this is a hard ask, right? When you have really competitive adults playing sports and they're playing to win a league, right? And so that's part of this, but certainly I think they recognize some of the challenges and have been really good about asking for help. And so to me, that's the point of this, right? That those kinds of situations, it is a good collaboration. Is it perfect? No. But it is something that recognizing the benefits of making that a formal partnership and a formal rental agreement has certainly, I think, helped both sides to be able to structure supports of the process more so than it was in the past.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
I noticed on the Detweiler Park car break-ins, I got a pop-up on my phone from Ring saying that there were 3 break-ins of cars. Was there an event going on, or was it just random?
There was an event going on. It was soccer going on that particular morning. That is when, naturally, I'll just paint you the picture that everyone's cars were parked, and you were away from your car. You're over at the field watching your child play or your loved one, and the opportunity was there, and the 2 cars were broken into at that particular.
Were they
place.
locked or unlocked?
They were locked, I believe, and it looks like, I can only theorize, that the suspect may have seen some sort of purse strap underneath the seat, because if memory serves, they indicated like I tried to put it under the seat. Well, they must have seen something, and that's when the suspect broke into the car.
Thank you.
I just had one question. It was basically a comparison. There is an event, where was it? Oh, Gwynn Park of adult trespass and then was arrested. And then there was another one where there was a warning given trespassing.
I didn't hear that last part.
So there was one incident in Gwynn Park
On the 7th?
on the 7th.
Yes.
And it looked like it ended in an arrest.
Yes.
And then there was another one, Forest Park on the 12th. And then it was just a trespass notice. And I just wanted to know if you could speak to the difference of those two and why they resulted differently, I guess, one being a notice and one being arrested.
Is Forest Park on the 2nd where it's the
12th, it looks like 8:30 trespass.
Oh, it's a non-crime.
Well, I guess, could you just speak to what the difference of one being criminal and one not being non-crime?
Yeah, just give me 1 second so I get myself together here. Okay. What the explanation is those 2 cases are actually related. All right. And it goes like this, that on the 7th, that particular subject was trespassed earlier from the park due to his violations of ordinances and criminal activity. So what I do is to close the loop on the trespass notice is I pull a different crime or different non-crime report, and that's actually documenting the process of him being served, the process of going on, sir, you are now trespassed from that on.
Got it. Okay, so that was just him being served.
Yeah, I believe so. Or that Strike the last part.
Okay.
They are, this one is actually related to not the trespass that you're just citing in Gwynn Park, but that was actually the one at Forest Park up on the 2nd.
Okay.
Okay, so those are,
how
there's the connection. It's that case is connected to your non-crime where we provided service of
Got it.
or notice. I'm providing notice
that's
on the
just the notice.
non-crime pursuant from the incident at Forest Park on the 2nd.
Got it. Okay.
So they're running parallel together.
Right. But the one that I was referencing was just them receiving
That
the
gentleman was
notice.
already served.
Okay.
That
got
he
it.
was already trespassed.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I had one other question about Cassidy Park. I've noticed on the Rock Island Trail along Knoxville in the evening, like, I don't know what they are. They're like a motorized vehicle that's just zooming like 30, 40 miles an hour as fast as they can go.
Is it a bike or is it a
No.
four-wheeler?
It's a four-wheeler.
Okay. Yeah, that is, and I'll have
And
to
just
turn to
recently, just, the last few months.
those vehicles, and Mike Freeberg is on top of that as well. He's involved with that. These vehicles are out there. The bicycles, I believe, Mike, was like, as long as they're doing it at a safe speed, that is acceptable. It's a bicycle.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But I mean, they're going around blind curves.
Yeah.
They're at Knoxville
Yeah.
and Giles. Right down the middle. Any bike could just run into them.
We too have gotten those issues and complaints, and we have been able to try to get a little bit more patrolling on the trails themselves. You may have seen us up there around in the Heights, in that area by the library. We made a concerted effort to be in that area as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that happening at certain times of the day?
I think
I've seen has been like 7 at dusk.
I believe from my notes that is the general consensus of time. It's in the evening.
Somebody after work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chief, I'm noticing now that, two questions. I see 2 incidents where we're dealing with some people with mental health issues.
Yes.
How do you recognize that that's what the problem is? And are we trained in that area?
We are trained in the area of recognizing mental health, and to have that operator, that first responder level
Mhm.
of assessing what's going on. We're able to, make sure, if they're acting in a peculiar manner that is a harm or a risk to themselves or others, or they're unable to take care of each other, then we will call in social services and or an ambulance if that's the case.
Oh,
To provide services to get them to where they need for either an evaluation or further treatment or any other services here in the city.
so you can recognize that kind of
Yes.
at the beginning. You can see
Yes.
that that's what the issue is.
Yes.
And at Kellogg Golf Course, we have some golfers that's upset with one another.
Yeah, that was a dispute between an adult and a juvenile, and they were not getting along very well. They weren't part of the same game or anything like that, but they got into it. The victim of the case was a 16-year-old, and the adult was basically this would have been construed as a disorderly conduct at best. Both sides were interviewed about the situation. My officer was able to locate the adult on that adult side, got his information and his side of the story saying this, and I wasn't doing anything. I'm not going to hit the kid. That was documented in a crime report, and it's referred to the state's attorney's office if they wish to work with the victim to pursue charges. Again, I think there may be some passions and or just a dispute on how someone's playing the game.
Oh, okay. That's all I have. Anyone else have any other questions, Chief?
President Johnson, I do. It's unrelated to the crime report. So, Chief, you weren't here for our last regular board meeting, but we discussed the pending ordinance that the city is considering for unhoused individuals and potentially criminalization of unhoused individuals. Are you having conversations with the city about currently, since they've introduced this policy, are you speaking with the city in any fashion? I know Emily had mentioned that she is, but I didn't know if that included you as well.
I have only been into the providing some background and whatnot, and working with Attorney Day, Kevin Day, and providing that kind of insight for us.
So internally, you've been
Yes.
talking and not with the city.
Yes, correct. At
All right.
this particular point.
Thank you.
Well, I
Okay.
certainly do appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you, sir.
You have challenges here, I see.
We do indeed. We do indeed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, committee reports, planning committee. Says
Does anybody have any questions?
anyone have any questions of Trustee Covington? Anything you want to add, Ms. Covington?
Nope, we're just moving right along. There's lots going on.
Well, thank you. New business, trustee travel, bill and lodging expense policy, first read.
This came out of the Finance Committee, comes to the board. So I guess the question I would have would be, are there any comments on the policy? Any concerns or questions about the policy that we can address before it comes back next time for a vote?
Anyone got any concerns or any questions? I've looked at it, so I was okay with it.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay, that's our report, Mr. President.
Thank you. 8B, Donovan Sculpture Garden.
So you have before you a staff recommendation that is twofold that actually we talked about in our foundation meeting prior to this meeting. Fisher Stoltz is here tonight to provide some additional information and to be able to answer some questions as representative of the Donovan Sculpture Garden Volunteer Group. Ultimately, our recommendation is that the board accept the donation of 2 sculptures and approve the expansion of the sculpture garden by 3 additional sculpture pads, which will not be permanently installed but be mobile per the desire of the sculpture garden group to allow for flexibility in art placement. But Fisher, if you want to come up to the microphone. I think you have comments maybe that you want to make before we proceed to questions.
I appreciate that, Emily. Thank you, everyone. The Donovan Sculpture Garden Committee is extremely pleased to have received a grant from the Gilmore Foundation. It was for $30,000, and it was to support bringing in 2 sculptures by the artist Barry Heeman from Chicago. The 2 sculptures are large-scale pieces called the Firth of Forth and Second Forth, and they have been on display at the Wandell Sculpture Garden. One of them is at Wandell, and the other one is in a Chicago sculpture park. These 2 pieces have never been shown together, but it's always been the artist's dream of being able to put them together in a particular orientation, and the opportunity to donate them to Donovan Sculpture Garden is something that we started talking about with Emily and the committee about a year ago. The 3 movable pads are something that we found from also Wandell Sculpture Garden that Otto Baum has been creating for them. And so this grant also provides for us to purchase 3 of those and a little bit more money for signage and Donovan wayfinding kind of things. Are there any questions about that that I can help with?
I do have a question. These statues we're talking, the sculptures rather we're talking about, I'm going to vary it in a very non-artsy way. Call them. It kind of looks like bridges, parts of a bridge or something or other.
They are the sculptures are based
off of some bridges in Scotland. That's Barry Heeman's heritage. And yeah, they are abstractions of that. I have actually a presentation that we have given to the Gilmore Foundation and also the Community Foundation that's in my laptop right now. But I have images of those pieces.
You did
Well, I'm
share
not
those
asking-
with the group during the foundation meeting. You saw those pictures?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I enjoy art. I study art and the like, but I in no way would I consider myself to be a particular aficionado enough to say what's good and what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, for the garden, is there a particular artistic theme that holistically is being envisioned for the art pieces that are going to be at Donovan? Or is this more of a, if we like it, we'll put it there, and, they're far enough apart that we don't need to worry about an overall structural theme here?
Yeah, those are great questions. There is something about the spacing of the sculptures that allows each one to have its own kind of independent identity. The committee understands that all of the pieces need to be something that would not cause any sort of concerns for the general public, and we want to educate the public by intermixing pieces that are bronze realism, like Sweet Like Lemonade is one of the pieces, and Prometheus 1 is another one, with abstract work like the Nike piece that's the sculpture that is mine in the garden. So anyway, this is going to give us an opportunity to, we are primarily local and regional in this way of promoting our own artists in the community. Actually, 4 of the 7 pieces in Donovan Park were created in the sculpture studio at Bradley University. We also have Preston Jackson's work in there. And a donation to begin the whole Donovan Sculpture Garden came from the Wandell Sculpture Garden, and that's here and there. And that artist is a Chicago artist. So this opportunity for us to kind of grow in our region by bringing in the 2 pieces by Barry Heeman as permanent works is a fantastic opportunity. And the other 3 sculpture pads are an opportunity for us to find some more local qualified artists to be able to exhibit there as well.
Well, you've spoken of a vision here articulately. You've spoken of a vision that the DSG has for the park, and I would encourage you to assist those who are trying to understand what's there and to expand their own knowledge and appreciation for what's there. That it would be helpful to have set down somewhere an ability for people to read and understand what the vision was in accepting these pieces and what is trying to be expressed to the public by what is in these particular pieces that are within the park. So I just add that or suggest that as a way of enhancing the experience that we're trying to create at the park.
Fisher, is that on the website? Can you give them the link to that website?
Well, there's quite a bit of information on our website, which I would encourage everybody to visit, Donovan Sculpture, and we also have a Facebook page. We do things like highlight the artists on those things. But one of our upcoming events is going to be the second Ollie tour of the Donovan Sculpture Garden that's going to be held on October 4th. And we're certainly hoping that Barry's pieces can be on site by that event. But yeah, we would love to actually begin to grow our educational experience and bring in elementary school students, high school students, and our committee would be happy to work with anyone who would like to work with us about.
Yeah, let me just conclude
Bring
by
more people
saying
in.
this. I appreciate, and I've seen on the website the description of the individual pieces that are there. But what I'm talking about is something broader than that, which is expressing why it is that specifically that you picked these pieces to be in this park as opposed to, well, we were able to get this thing for this park and we just put it there because we were able to get it. So
Mhm.
there, what collectively are we trying to teach the public about art by the pieces that are being placed there is what I'm after.
Okay. And actually, the Wandale Sculpture Garden just celebrated its 25th anniversary. They're up to like 40 something pieces in that park. And they're kind of our model. Tim Bartlett, the director of the Urbana Park District, is a great resource for us. Mhm.
President Johnson, if I may, thank you, Fisher. I'm extremely excited about this. I just want to speak for myself and say that I really love the public-private partnerships that allow us to create more placemaking and intersectionality between our green spaces and the public.
Mhm.
I also want to commemorate you all for taking the very active role and going to get this funding to help enhance our park. We love that collaboration too. Using Mayor Ali's words, we love using other people's money. So we appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead to approve staff's recommendation to accept the donation, as well as the donation from the Gilmore Foundation, as well as accept the donation of the 2 sculptures and approve the expansion of the DSG with the addition of 3 sculpture pads. I do want to make one amendment in the staff memo, similar to what I made in the foundation meeting, that in the second sentence of the second paragraph where it reads, while this grant was denied by the Community Foundation, it was subsequently submitted. I want to clarify that original application was submitted privately by the Donovan Sculpture Garden group without the staff's participation, because we want to commemorate and give you all your flowers in that effort. So if we can just make that clarification in the memo while approving the staff's recommendation.
Second.
Before we vote, I just have a question. Where will those 2 Henneman sculptures, what part of the park will they be
Well,
placed in?
we looked for a spot that would showcase it well, that would also be easy to access for the equipment that needs to go in. Actually, Mike and Matt, and we had a group that was there first looking at maps of Donovan, and then exploring a number of sites, and we chose a spot that is on the entrance exit. There's a piece as you come in on the right by Jackie Willis, and if you are going out on the left, about maybe 50 yards out, there's a high point that used to be a tee, I think, for the maybe the 18th hole that goes over the pond. That high spot is a perfect size for these 2 sculptures to exist, and that's the one that we've identified.
Thank you.
All right, question? Roll call? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Trustee Birchey.
Aye.
Trustee Covington.
Aye.
Trustee Harrod.
Aye.
Trustee Hill.
Aye.
Vice President Sierra.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye,
Thank you.
motion carries. Okay, Riverfront agreement, Brent Wheeler. Not Brent Wheeler, I'm sorry.
I'll take this
Scott
one.
Loftus, yeah.
So before he starts, I would say thank you to Scott. As part of our restructuring, Scott is now overseeing the Riverplex and Aquatics. So thanks, Scott, for jumping right in and
Thanks, Scott.
taking
Yes.
8C right out of the gate.
So yeah, staff is recommending the approval of the Riverplex YMCA dual access agreement for 2025. Just want to point out there are two main changes to this agreement, which really it's the term dates, obviously going in 2025, and then it's the hourly rate for the WISE finance director, who we reimburse for managing the finance of this agreement. So those are the two major changes to the agreement. First one is just the term dates.
I second.
Question? Roll call.
Trustee Birchey.
Aye.
Trustee Covington.
Aye.
Trustee Harrod.
Aye.
Trustee Hill.
Aye.
Vice President Sierra. Oh, sorry. President Johnson.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Emily, do you want to make mention of the new changes in the front? The new gentleman that's
Scott Loftus is taking.
their new
Okay,
roles?
yes, all right, so that's fair, I was being flipped. So as part of our reorganization that has happened since the departure of Deputy Director Wheeler, I am pleased to announce that Nick Conrad he will join our executive committee, our team, as well as Jenny Swanson, who could not be here tonight. In addition, we have taken the responsibilities that Brent had as far as supervision. We talked about this in the golf committee. Yeah. And so we've split those among existing superintendents because the priorities that those projects are to include the zoo, the Riverplex, what's the other one? Golf. Oh yeah, golf, that giant thing, golf, right? So those three things, those are very difficult to bring somebody in and try to take those over where they are in their current processes as far as the major projects that President Johnson, you've identified, right, that those are priority areas for us. And so we have restructured our leadership in order to take those projects on. So Scott, because of his past experience with the Riverplex, that's where he came from, he's taking that piece, and it does fit in nicely with the other things that he supervises. Matt Freeman is going to oversee golf. From the operations side, he has historically overseen golf on the maintenance side. And so we've comboed those two things under his umbrella. And I will tell you just anecdotally that in the last week, we've seen the benefits of that already in the budget process. Having one person talking to both operations and maintenance has really proven to be invaluable as we've tried to move that forward. The zoo operations, I'm actually taking that over, at least in the short term, because Max is on day 102, and because we are in the process, as we've talked about earlier this evening, we're in the process of that development assessment and feasibility study for a capital campaign to try to plug somebody else in to provide daily supervision while all that's happening. Given the priority of that, we've agreed that it makes sense for me to work directly with Max, at least in the short term, but hopefully maybe forever, who knows? So we're taking the dollars that are made available to us as a result of Brent's departure, and we're actually putting in, and we will be posting 2 positions at a supervisor manager level to help with that middle section, those overseers and doers that are sort of that combination. When we look back historically over the places where we have contracted, that's one of the places that doesn't exist as much as it used to, right? Those supervisor level, that part of that succession planning that you already talk about, the bench strength for the next generation. And so we're looking at adding a supervisor in the Parks division to support Matt, to stand alongside Jacob Cuban and really split up some of the work that they're doing in the oversight of the vast amount of stuff that Parks is asked to do, from both the care and maintenance of parks, also then to maintenance and repair across our facilities. So, and recreation maintenance, to take all of those pieces and to have 2 supervisors instead of 1, to allow Matt to have someone else to help him with that supervision. We're also adding and breaking up. Since COVID, we've done a lot of restructuring and reconsideration of just what a park district event is. And so we've been looking at, right, pre-COVID, everything was primarily focused on the riverfront, and we asked people to come to us. Since COVID, and even just before that, we were really looking at how to take programming to people in our smaller parks and across the community. And so we are adding another manager level position in that space in order to look at being able to really facilitate all of the programming that we're asking them to do. They need some more leadership and help to support that. Further, we're taking the supervisor of community connections and her work with community events and engagement and putting her on that team to work directly with those events and with the not only volunteer coordination and volunteer recruitment, but also engagement of youth as we think about how to build that next generation of park patrons as well. So there is some fairly significant restructuring that's happening, but it is all with the goal of trying to put, I've said this for as many years as I've been in this role, right? Trying to put likes with likes, trying to maximize letting experts do the work that they're experts in. And so trying to shuffle some of those things so that we are able to maximize the impact that our leadership has and the support that we're able to provide to our teams, as well as to build better opportunities for those teams to engage with each other and with executive leadership on a much more regular basis in smaller subject matter settings. So lots of changes happening, but 2 full-time positions will be posted here in the next probably 2 weeks that will help to facilitate this as we move into there's no slow season anymore for the park district, but it is a good time to bring on some of these folks so that we can start to train them to be ready to hit the ground running next spring. And also there's always generally some sort of domino effect that happens when you hire at that supervisor manager level, that you pull people up or over or whatever, so to fill those gaps so that we are hopefully at full strength when we start our 2025 season.
Now Swanson's role will be now, she's moving
She
to
is
marketing?
she is still in marketing, but she will sit at the executive team table because we spend a lot of time talking about marketing and communication. And certainly that's been a question that you have all asked about, how does marketing fit into X, Y, and Z? So she will be a part of those weekly strategic conversations that we have at the executive level, as will Nick, to be able to make sure that we are representing all parts of our park district inventory when we have those strategic conversations.
And Nick Conrad was going.
Nick Conrad's right there. So he's sitting at the front table. He's a member of the executive team now, and his title will change from supervisor to superintendent.
Of.
I don't know. What is his name?
Well, it looks like it's already changed. I'm like, it's right there.
Well, we used to have
PPD events and experiences.
There used to be a superintendent of riverfront events, though.
There did.
Yeah.
There was.
Okay, good.
That was terrible
Good.
grammar. Yes.
You put it together pretty well.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Ms. Jaffe, what are you doing?
No, fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I came in mid-conversation, so, and I apologize, I had to step away for the washroom. So, Emily, you're taking on zoo supervisions on what we've already talked about your workload being already.
I know, but I don't think there's a better way to do this because I would be stepping on somebody's toes otherwise. What we are creating is a monthly structure where we will be meeting, and we met today for the first time with Max. We're meeting with zoo leadership every other week, and they will meet with myself, with Carrie from a business perspective, with Scott from an operational leadership perspective, with Matt from a maintenance and repair and just general care standpoint. So we will be monitoring those things collectively, but that day-to-day communication with Max is, I'm doing that right now. And I think it's really important, given the priority of that capital campaign and the investment that needs to happen in that space, that I'm directly involved in that work. I have done some reshuffling of some of the other things that are on my plate in order to make that work.
Got it. And then 2 other things that I picked up on the latter end was taking programs to people, which I love. You and I talk about this, and my understanding is that initiative is under the community connections sphere. And it sounds like community connections is now going from programs to events.
Right, because that's really what she's facilitating. The primary, like her work with Streets Belong to Me and the engagement of that across our inventory and the work that she's doing. Like she was actively involved in Founders Day, right? And trying to engage and recruit people to participate in that. So she will still play an important role in the work of recreation that Scott oversees, but her primary, her people, as you think about likes with likes, it makes sense to put her in that space with those park event programming people so that we're balancing a calendar appropriately and we're balancing resources and we're able to support her in the work that she's doing in that space. She's going to work very closely with Melinda Hewitt. We're looking at it, and she has fostered and really spearheaded the idea of, if you bring in, let's say, the X football team, right, to work an event, then they can earn a lock-in, or they can earn, there are different benefits that they can earn for their team or for their school. And so being able to connect the two of them in that space to identify opportunities and plug kids and young adults into those spaces where they can engage and see the value of civic engagement and stewardship. That's one of the things that we're able to do at a higher level when we put them on the same team. As we build this out and we figure out just exactly how this will roll forward, then there are opportunities for that engagement to expand. But our first priority is to think about how we really build out that volunteer stewardship engagement piece, because that's a piece that we know that there are young adults who are looking for those opportunities, and it fits in so nicely with Chanel's work with power lunches, and having those kinds of things work together. That this is to me, and I'll own it either way, but to me, that connection of here are the dots, right? Here are the things that are happening on all the little islands. Here are the bridges that we build between functions to try to make them exponentially more impactful. And so this is our first effort at that, is to pull her, because she kind of straddled the fence, and to pull her into that events and that organizational space will give her access to more resources to support the work that she's doing and really help to amplify it.
So resources, because you and I have talked several times about expanding that team. Do you plan on expanding community connections people-wise?
That's part of it, is engaging her with the volunteer piece first, seeing how far we can get with that. We're not in a position to add multiple positions, but our goal is certainly to expand that effort and figure out over time how to grow that team.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I think as you continue to think through this restructuring, as you had mentioned, with the freeness of funding with Brent's departure, I think that would have been a great opportunity. But staffing ultimately rests with you. So I'm trusting your judgment as to how you best optimize operations. I do want to go on record and say, and again, I caught the latter half of this, so I could have missed something, but I have always been concerned about having only one person doing community connections work. And I know oftentimes the response to that concern is we all do community connections work, but this directly goes to that quote that I sent you the other day: when everyone owns something, no one owns it. So I'm really interested in this budget talking about whether that be people or tools, being technology, whatever that case may be, figuring out how we support that work for direct ownership. Because I think, honestly, community connections is where we start to bridge that gap between the individual and the institution. I know that's somewhat of a new role, at least since I've been here. I know that role was created in a way, or pivoted. But I'm interested in knowing how this one person is going to go to support the phenomenal work that they're already doing, and an extension of that work being the very vast signature programs that we have, or events that we have throughout the year.
So a couple of notes. When we first started with that supervisor of community connections position, that started with Peter Kobach. And the work that he was doing was to try to do the work that Brianna is doing, plus the work that is being done now by the supervisor of community connections. So we really have two people now instead of one, thinking about that kind of access. In thinking about, to me, your point about signature events and getting people into spaces that they aren't currently accessing, and trying to make sure that we are reaching underrepresented groups is exactly why the move was made, because those are the opportunities to engage some of those underrepresented groups into spaces where they will feel that becomes that first foray that helps them to get more comfortable with some of the smaller programming where they might feel like they're being targeted or that we haven't been able to get much traction with. So this is the first step in that. As that continues to grow, and certainly with feedback in the community survey about people's understanding of where our equity and access and seeing where our summer of fun numbers are, all of those things are happening. That is being chunked out to, it's not everybody and nobody owns it. It is, there are pieces of that that are going to each of us. So the marketing department, well, I mean, there are specific goals, so that's not the same thing as nobody owning it.
Well,
There are
let me
very
let me
specific goals
clarify.
about, just a second,
Mhm.
about a marketing campaign, for example, focused on scholarships and access to opportunities, and building that out as part of our strategy. That will be the responsibility of our marketing department. Building out that process for how we engage people and offer some benefit to them and get groups involved. That's not just it's not just the responsibility of the supervisor of community connections. That's also the volunteer coordinator's position. Thinking about how we build that into workforce development opportunities is part of our Be Anything team. So it is being spread, and there are responsibilities that are happening across lots of job descriptions because this is a priority.
Can I just, I'm
well,
sorry,
if
just,
I can finish my point, and then I'll end my concern on that. Everything that you just explained was exactly why I have concern. It's multiple people owning it. So in all, what the point that I'm trying to get across is there, from my understanding, there's one person in our entire workforce that's job solely focused on outreach, 100% focused on outreach.
And her job is not 100% focused on outreach. That's part of everybody's job. That's part of everybody's job to recruit people to their programs, and it's part of our marketing effort to be all of those things. So it is not that this is a lost thought for people. It is a priority across many different positions because we have 800 people who work for us. So it has to be spread across multiple people. If I only had one person and nobody else did anything about it, I understand your concerns, but that's not the case. And it is a part of our goals and objectives. It's a part of our action steps to prioritize this effort. And you see that based upon the numbers of people who are participating in our programs and events. You see where those numbers are. That means that we are doing outreach, and it is effective, and it's becoming more effective. What you're going to see in the budget is that we have surpassed our scholarship budget because we are reaching more people than we ever have. So there is a lot to be said for the process that we're using. Do we always look for opportunities to expand our team? Yes. Is right now our priority to make sure that we have sufficient staff focused on care and maintenance of our parks. We've heard that loud and clear that that's something we need to figure out how to do better. And if the expectation is that we're going to continue, and we've heard this over and over again, that we need to be in those spaces. We need more events. We need to be able to support all of these things that are happening in our parks. That means we need more staff supporting those events. And that's where those two priorities are at this point. And all of that fits into community outreach and the reputation that we have in our community.
So this
May
really
I
boils
say,
down to a gap in
this is really,
understanding.
yeah.
Okay, what are we doing here?
An OMA problem?
Yeah, it's the agenda. We're talking about the budget at this point.
OMA comes when we take formal action and something that's not on the agenda.
Well, operations and how the staff are structured is not our job.
Fair.
But what is our job is that the outcomes of that structure meet our priorities. So I think your discussions, we just need to move on.
Which is fine, which is why I closed it out. So thank you, Emily.
I move approval of 8C.
I'll second.
8C has already been voted upon, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 8D.
8C, I said.
No, we've done it.
No,
No, we didn't vote on 8C, I don't believe, do we?
Yeah,
Yes, we did.
yeah.
8D.
You made the motion and Joyce second, and we did roll call.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve 8D of the lease agreement.
For Junior League of Peoria.
I'll second.
Question? Roll call?
Trustee Burchey?
Aye.
Trustee Covington?
Aye.
Trustee Harrod?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Vice President Sierra?
Aye.
President Johnson?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
We have some calendar of consent events.
Move
Anyone?
approval of 9A and 9B is the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
First of all, was there anyone that wanted to talk about these individually before we do the 9A and B? I didn't finish that. Seeing none? Okay, can we take the motion? On 9A and 9B? Is there a motion?
You had motion.
We have
Okay,
a
you
motion
got,
in a
we
second.
ain't got a second, okay. Question. Roll call?
Trustee Burchey?
Aye.
Trustee Covington?
Aye.
Trustee Harrod?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Vice President Sierra?
Aye.
President Johnson?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Are there any pending business? Anybody citizens request to address the board? There was some communications. Anybody have any comments on them? Other business?
Yes, I have a request if Superintendent of Recreation, Scott, could just give us a brief description of sort of the philosophy and how the fees and structure,
Sure.
fees and charges were
Sure.
modeled.
Yeah, in your packets in the program committee tonight, you'll find the proposed fees and charges for 2025. These are the numbers staff have put together and with careful considerations, though I want to note that there are still a few adjustments being made with the Riverplex and golf budgets. When determining the fees and charges, staff takes several factors into account. First and foremost, we look at the actual cost of to the district to provide certain programs or services. This includes things like recent minimum wage increases. We also evaluate the impact of each program on the pillars of the district, the vibrancy, DEIA. Additionally, we assess the demand for each program or service and compare the cost of similar offerings in the local market to ensure that we're competitive throughout. While there are several pages of details in your packet, I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the key fee changes we're proposing for 2025. And I won't list them all, but I got a couple, just want to make sure that you guys are aware. All district summer camps will see an increase of $10 per week. Most sports leagues and dance programs will be increased by $5 per program. Starting in May of 2025, contracted ice rental at Owen Center will increase $10 per hour as part of the new hockey season. Shelter rental rates will increase $25 per day. And then finally, park rentals will transition from a daily rate to an hourly rate with the proposed change of $40 per hour and with a 4-hour minimum. Renters will receive an hour free before and after for setup and teardown. I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns you guys may have.
I'm just curious, are all the shelters the same price?
Yes. Oh, I take that back. Tree Win is $40 per hour.
So these are a part of the budget. The board does approve the slate of fees and charges. So because this is obviously a critical part of us being able to complete the process of presenting a balanced budget, we do ask for feedback from any of you. If you have questions or comments, if you could do that by the end of September, we would appreciate that. We do not have a meeting on the 25th, so we would ask that we try to connect with you. We can do that via email so that we can finalize that and be ready to proceed when we come back to our October 2nd meeting.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to adjourn? Or any action steps review? I think we didn't have any, did we? Was there a couple?
The amendment on the staff memo for BD or 8D.
Oh, okay.
gosh.
Yeah, I think just the amendment on the staff memo, everything else was in committee.
Okay. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Got you out here by 8 o'clock.